What is this, an interrogation? There is a reason, actually, and the reason is nothing to do with cinema per se. I moved from New York at some point to make my first feature film, and I was teaching in Birzeit University. Actually, that was a European community program. They've asked me to start a couple of experimental courses in Birzeit University, if you know what that is. And then I shot my first feature, and then I moved to do the post-production in Paris. I've done the same thing for the second one, and then I started to feel when my parents were aging, and I wanted to be closer to the possibility of flying on the spot or taking, you know, more frequent flying to stay with my family. And so that's really why I quit New York. Back the Nazareth plus, you know, what we're calling back home, let's say, between quotes, provided a lot of the stories, and it's where all the familiarity is. But I definitely, I was enhanced culturally in New York, and I think that was like the 20s and beginning 30s. So I think it's the combination of both. An aesthetic, cultural, critical, conceptual enhancing was actually New York. Now, having said that, I don't mean New York, the place. I mean where I read books that could be from all kinds of languages. But I have to complement that with something that refers to the question. I do think that the more you become something towards the perfect stranger, which is making every place a place you potentially can call home. Of course, this sort of the nomadic existence, if you want, serves something, and serves something that becomes a privilege, despite the fact that this lack of rootedness is not always easy to handle and can sometimes be quite tiresome. Because when you lose that one place which you have been rooted in, and where every place becomes a potential home, well, it sometimes makes you slightly asking yourself, you know, questions if you want to sustain the stamina that is needed to be such a nomad. However, the very privilege of it is the very benefit of actually never looking from a static position ever, because of the fact that you are shifting all the time an angle. So the chances of you holding on to an authoritative or ideological static point of view is reduced to the minimum. So this is really a benefit. You become so many others that you stop being somebody who was practicing you know, policies of exclusion and inclusion. So it's good for the soul. It might be sometimes tiresome for the spirit. I'm not working for a nomad public, but I'm not working for a local public. I don't make my films for any targeted public. In fact, the idea is you know, one can say cinema itself cannot be confined to a national boundary. Cinema does not stop, refuses to stop at a checkpoint. It transgresses boundaries. Major. The fact that, you know, you win a prize is major. The problem, essentially, of your question is that it might lure me to be a little bit nasty towards the system of marketing. As you know, what I was just seduced to do, well, in this case I'm going to do it, is to say this. Most of the people surrounding the film are associating themselves to it as a work of commodity. Not to mention that they are there as distributors and as sales, only looking for what sells, and few with passion. In that regard, that's why I think the price becomes so important, because they are seduced by that, and because they can sell etc., etc. Having said that, you know, of the great films that were born into this world, they stayed on. You know, I don't know if you even remember if a film by Michelangelo Antonioni won or did not win. So it's actually, you lose interest in what won and you just attach yourself to the work of art. Yes, it helps a lot, and yes, there are a lot of films that temporarily are sunk because of lack of attention, because of their potential profit, of course. Having said that, luckily, you know, with all the regression that is going on, I think you can say that there are still people who are, it's consoling to think that they still exist, those people who are really, are for non-profit purposes, you know, they have a tender relationship to the idea that cinema is beautiful and pleasurable and tender, and that it seeks friendship. What can I say? You know, my films were successful. No, I'm joking. You are completely right. I think that a lot of directors face this, you know, and the problem is that things, I don't think, are ever getting better. So the problem also is that now with the digital, you know, world, there are many more films being made, and that's another added element to the, you know, the chaos that is being produced because of the internet, because suddenly, you know, the market shifting, and it's difficult to actually do any kind of, I mean, how can you be selective when yesterday there were 5 films and today there are 500? Just because it's available, because they can do it cheaply, but in fact, had we asked somebody who passed away in the 40s, or say Walter Benjamin, to come from his grave and see what's happening today regarding something he wrote in the, you know, many, many years ago, I think he would definitely go back instantly to the grave and never want to come out again. The problem is never really that, per se. I think the problem is the quality. I think the facility does not help the quality. So the fact that there are more people being able to make films is a problem by itself, you know, because it's easier to write a book, it's easier to make a film, and that is an obstacle, in my opinion. Then comes the, I'm not so sure I'm there with the idea of the marketing aspect, because in fact it's, you know, what you have sometimes, like a film that suddenly gains 1 trillion spectators on the internet. Did you ever watch any of those? I mean, I'd rather go and watch X-rated films because I have never seen the level of vulgarity, you know. This is where things become pornographic for me. It's because every single sickness that has been suppressed for so long has come out because it's potentially profitable. So I'm not so sure about this equation of the middle man or the first man. I think we should concentrate on the idea that we should tend to our spiritual existence and be sincere to ourselves and make better films. That's all what it is. I can tell you, I've just been through this experience today. So freshly baked, I can say, as far as I'm concerned. And that does not only, you know, confine the question to critics, but including critics. When there is an inspired critic in front of me, it's extremely beneficial for me because it's very inspiring. Sometimes this critic does not even fill a sentence. Just his gesture is inspirational sometimes, with a hint that makes one want to take an interior voyage and reach for the uttermost sincere answer that can come up with. And that in itself becomes a very beneficial voyage because of so much self-evaluation that, you know, is needed constantly in our everyday life, and not only when we make films. So I can only say this, it's a moment of pleasure when I get that critic in front of me. Similarly, that critic is the spectator who are there when you finish a film. And I think that for me, it's a very enhancing experience after I finish a film and stand in front of an audience, because this is also a place where you can start. These are the people who made with you the film. They just basically participating in the film. They had just watched it, so they put their own imaging, if you want, due to the fact that this is how they saw it in their own sense of specialness of the way they saw it. So when you start to discuss with them the film that you all made at this moment, it becomes also self-revealing in so many ways. It is there, actually, that you also can examine that initial part where you had faith that this funny moment is going to be shared, and the only way to know that this is not a funny moment, you know, it's not a joke that you left on your, you know, on your own with, but that this can be shared with so many places. Because you have to understand that it's crucial, as I'm saying, the funny moment, because when you want to produce a burlesque moment, the magic of the fact that a person here is taking that punchline and the same thing thousands of miles away is quite religious for me. You know, it's like, how come? So you have conducted that temporality. You have situated the punchline, and you have been obsessive even in the way you put it in your image. In other words, the initial departure has been a moment of faith before you took the leap to make that image, that what you are doing now is going to be shared by so many people. When you are actually facing the audience, this is exactly the place where you can see, you know, that's why I watch the film with them after I finish a film, because I want to see, are they laughing in the places where I laughed when I saw that image in its initial departure. This is the way I look at, you know, critics and critical approach.